Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. As we speak, the emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council is underway regarding the situation that is developing in the Middle East. Israel's incursion into Lebanon and the brutality that continues unabated in the Gaza Strip. And also we saw that Iran launched a barrage of ballistic missiles against Israel. A lot has been happening since that particular moment. Condemnation of that particular act of Iran as it had resolved to avenge those recent assassinations of some of the top leadership of the resistance groups in the Middle East. And it actually acted yesterday on Tuesday with that barrage of ballistic missiles. And regarding this particular emergency meeting, the United Nations Secretary General has called for an end to the sickening cycle of escalation in the Middle East. He was speaking at this emergency meeting and he has said that it is high time to stop the sickening cycle of escalation after escalation that is leading the people of the Middle East straight over the cliff. Specifically talking about that particular act of launch of ballistic missiles by Iran over Israel, the Iranian president said, let me quote, "Let Netanyahu know that Iran is not a belligerent, but it stands firmly against any threat. This is only a corner of our power. Do not enter into a conflict with Iran," unquote. We also saw a statement by Benjamin Netanyahu saying, let me quote him, "Iran made a big mistake tonight and it will pay for it. The regime in Iran does not understand our determination to defend ourselves and our determination to retaliate against our enemies," unquote. We saw when this particular development was unfolding that the launch of those ballistic missiles on the part of Iranians against Israelis. The White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, in a very brief note to the press, talked of how the US had helped Israelis in order to thwart that Iranian attack, and also saying that Iranian attack was defeated and ineffective. On the other side, we have seen the major world powers, including China, Russia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, as well as Israel being the president of the G7, calling for restraint for all these developments that are developing in the Middle East. We are honored to have been joined in the studio by Mr. Nasir Ali Khan, former ambassador. Mr. Khan, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Mr. Baker Younis, Arab journalist. Mr. Younis, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. On Skype at the same time, we are honored to have been joined by Dr. Yasir Masood, expert international relations. We'll be joined by him later in the show. Thank you both of you gentlemen for joining us for this particular episode in the studio. Let me begin with you, Mr. Khan. Let's specifically talk about, I'll come to this particular meeting that is underway as we speak of the United Nations Security Council. What could be the prospect, what could be expected of this particular, but later on. Let's talk about that particular resolve on the part of Iranians after these recent assassinations, particularly of Ismail Haniyeh and then Hassan Nasrallah. There was a clear resolve of vengeance. We saw yesterday Iran retaliated, launching a barrage of ballistic missiles. Then comes the story of the Iron Dome, the defense system of Israel. What was the message and what about the timing of the Iranian attack on Israel?
Well, in answer to your question regarding what may be going on in the Security Council, from the statements that I have seen from most world leaders, my guess is that the Security Council will condemn the attack, but it will call for extreme restraint and it will not want this conflict to escalate. As far as the Israelis are concerned, very recently in the United Nations General Assembly, first the Iranian president came and clearly said, we do not want war. We want peace, we want rapprochement, we want to have some kind of peace between these, in this conflict. But As opposed to that, the speech by Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu was incendiary, to say the least. He not only clearly threatened the leaders in Iran, saying that we can hit you anywhere in Iran. He said, in fact, we can hit anyone in the Middle East anywhere at any time. So, in my opinion, there is a deliberate attempt on part of Mr. Netanyahu to escalate and expand this conflict. And by actually attacking Ismail Haniya inside the territory of Iran is where the conflict clearly starts from. And there are three reasons. Three reasons for Netanyahu to do what he's doing. Number one is that he wants to suck the United States into this conflict. Number two, he wants to prolong his rule by prolonging the war itself. And number three, he may try to get an opportunity to attack the nuclear facilities of Iran, having this excuse that we have been under a massive attack. But when you go back and look at the situation that has been created, in my opinion, there is no one else to blame but the Israeli government.
Right. So these are three major reasons that you've given in your view regarding bringing the U.S. into this particular conflict. We've seen statements coming from the officials from the United States also. The Defense Secretary, General Lloyd Austin, also before that, the Pentagon spokesperson talking about the serious consequences if Iran resorts to any sort of a reaction. I'll come back to you to take your deeper understanding. What could be the possibility? Would there be a highly likely a chance of the U.S. becoming the part of this particular conflict directly against Iran? Other two reasons also, I'll be taking your view on those also. Let me proceed towards Mr. Younis. Mr. Younis, now the kind of attack on the part of Iranians we have seen yesterday, of course, they're resolved for vengeance after the recent assassination. When we talk about the defense of Israel, the defense system, firstly, what sort of a message with the kind of timing Iranians chose at this particular moment? And what sort of an impact do you think it actually made in incurring any sort of a damage to the Israelis?
See, the timing is very important for sure. Now we are seeing Hezbollah fighting, Hamas fighting, and now Iran have seen itself have to be part of the fight. Why? Because the enemy is the same. The enemy is continuously, maximizing the target of his own weapons. He have reached to Iran. He have killed Ismail Haniya. He have reached to the leaders of Hezbollah, who is actually ally of Iran. The Israelis don't want to keep anybody on their border strong. They don't want to keep any Arabs especially strong. They don't want to keep any Islamic country strong. So this is the map, or this is the ideological map they are playing with. So they want not to keep, as they say himself, but Netanyahu said, according to his Torah teachings, that he will follow and kill his enemies. That's what he said the day before yesterday on his statement. So he's following his own religion teaching, which is emphasized that he have to follow his enemy. For him, according to his understanding, that everybody else other than the Jewish, they're his enemy. And everybody surrounding, having weapons.
What about that particular part of his speech when he was talking about the so-called corridor of peace, taking two different maps in his two different...
he have mentioned this, where he have joined India to Israel and then to Europe. So that's the way he thinks that this is the good people and the others are the bad people. So in this thinking, we have to understand that we, in his equation, are his enemy. We are the bad people, and he's not going to let us live. He have to eliminate us.
Okay, so the first reason that has been cited by Ambassador Khan, that the Israeli Prime Minister is adamant in bringing the US into a direct conflict. What's your understanding? And after this retaliation by Iran in form of those launch of the ballistic missiles and recent statements by the US officials do you think there is a highly likely possibility of the US becoming a direct party into this conflict here in the Middle East?
Well, I believe that U.S. already is a direct party. They are already supplying all the weapons to Israel. It's not something new. Yeah, if the U.S. Army want to come participate, they have already participated when they have tried to free the Israeli kidnapped people in Gaza. So it's not that they are away from the fight. They are there. They might deploy more army. They might start a war against Iran. That's very, very possible, because for them, as Biden said yesterday, that Israel's security is our main mission. So they might do that. Who says no? See, U.S. coming to the region, this is not the first time. They already came before. They came when they wanted to defeat the Iraqis against the Kuwaitis. They came before here to Afghanistan. So it is not something that Americans won't do. They will do it. It is not something new. But the problem is, what is our reaction? The main issue is the Muslim nations, the Muslim countries, the Arab countries' reaction. We don't have yet a strategy to stop them. So this is the problem we are lying. Why America, why the Israelis are doing this? Why the Americans are saying this and they are deploying more army? Because they have the ability, and yet we as Arab, as Muslim, don't have any action or any reaction.
What could be the possible roadmap in that particular regard? Of course, we have seen this retaliation on part of the Iranians. I'll come back to you. Ambassador Khan, talking specifically about the US role in this entire saga, that unflinching support to the Israelis since 7th of October, saying that Israel had the right of self-defense against Palestinian resistance groups' actions that happened on 7th of October. Now, after that launch of the ballistic missiles on the part of Iranians yesterday, that very brief note by White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan talking about how US assisted or helped Israelis in thwarting that particular attack. Also, warning Iran of serious consequences if Iran resorts to such type of actions. Do you really foresee that the US could become a direct party to this particular conflict very soon?
You see, when the West or when Israel accuses these resistance groups of being proxies of Iran, there is no doubt in my mind that these people are being helped by Iran. But when you talk about proxies, I believe that Israel is also a proxy of the West ever since 1917. And so they are a very important ally which have been placed in a very important region. Not only is there energy resources that are extremely important, but the Suez Canal, as you have seen with the problems in the Houthis in the Red Sea, very important navigation channel. So they have placed a very important ally in the heart of all this. And this conflict, to a large extent, is also influenced by other geopolitical factors. Now, as far as the United States and their hesitant, being hesitant.
So in that particular view, when you talk of Israel being a proxy of the West since 1917, placed in such a region that is laced with economic resources, also that strategic importance, the economic importance of Suez Canal. So in that particular view, why would one question as to the role the US is exhibiting right now, especially since 7th of October, if it is the Israel is the proxy of the West, why would it condemn Israeli actions? Why would it take a broader stock of the situation?
Yeah, first of all, let me try to make it clear. Israel did not come into being in 1917. The Balfour Declaration and intention can be seen from there. Came into being in 1947. And a very important event, the Nakba, took place in 1948. It had the full support of Western powers. After the Second World War, it was very important for the United States to prevent the growth of Soviet influence down south, and they wanted to move in very quickly to make countries maybe change regimes, to have as many countries in the region that would be friendly with them. Okay? So that's one part of it. But when, for example, in 1971 there was the oil embargo, there was a serious problem with the US economy and the American public making long queues outside gas stations, and the speed limit on highways was taken to 55 miles an hour, etc. Then of course this alliance becomes even stronger because they realize what can happen to their energy needs. This is back in the early 1970s. But since then, things have changed. The Soviet Union is not there anymore, and their new perceived enemies or their antagonists are basically the Russians and the Chinese. But coming back to your question about why are they hesitant, I don't believe that they are in any way hesitant. Throughout this conflict, there is a clear hypocrisy. You might condemn something. I can condemn on October 7th if Hamas killed some children, or even if they took hostages, because that is against international law. But Hamas is a resistance movement which took birth when the Israelis, after 57 years of occupation and about 17 years since Gaza is an open prison. So it is very clear to me that they do have, under international law, they have the right to resist occupation, and they are in a war.
Right.
Okay? So I can condemn that.
Right.
Similarly, the United States might condemn certain actions by Israel. However, it is hypocrisy that on the one hand you are making a jetty in Gaza to provide humanitarian assistance, and on the other hand you continue to support them by providing arms, and not only arms. In this recent conflict, it is quite clear that satellite information, human intelligence, all kinds of things have been provided, and they have clearly said that in the attack that Iran made on Israel, we helped to intercept. So in the future, what I see is not troops on the ground, either in Gaza or in Iran. They know they don't want to get bogged down over there. But there will certainly be more naval assets offshore, which will be used to intercept these missiles.
Right.
But having said that, even the best anti-missile systems in the world have an accuracy of maybe 50 to 55%.
But this particular Iron Dome is claimed to have 90% efficiency.
Well, you can claim anything you like, but you have clearly seen how many, there are video clips available over there.
So what had been the impact of that particular attack? Because Jake Sullivan says that this attack has been defeated and was ineffective, after saying that the US had helped Israelis in thwarting it.
Look, let me explain something. Israel, I was looking up on the map, the area of Israel. The area of Israel is smaller than that of greater Los Angeles. Now this Iron Dome that you are talking about, a few weeks ago, Iran warned both Israel and the United States that they were going to send drones and some missiles. After the warning, there were still missiles and drones that managed to get through the Iron Dome. This time around, there are a lot more, which you can see on the video clips that are coming out of there. So I don't believe that the Iron Dome is as impenetrable as some people would like us to believe. Right. But as far as my opinion is concerned, I am very, very worried that if this conflict escalates, there will be a lot of civilian deaths on both sides.
And in that case, what needs to be done when it comes to the responsibility of the United Nations Security Council? In particular, as we speak, its emergency meeting is underway. Let me talk to Mr. Younis about the impact of that Iranian attack. Jake Sullivan says it was defeated and ineffective after he said the Israelis were helped by the US.
See, if the Iranians do an attack and the Israelis say it's not effective, it is not something should stop, let's say, us from keep saying that what the Israelis is doing is wrong and what the Israelis are doing is a criminal act. See, this is just part of the war. Now we have a full-fledged war with Iran, with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and with the Palestinians in Gaza. It is part of this war. It's not something, it's not the whole issue. Now, what is happening in Gaza? The Israelis are still bombarding, still killing civilians. Okay, what's happening in Lebanon? They are also bombarding, killing civilians. It is not only a part of it, and it's not that the only story doesn't come ends at Iran end. We have to understand that there is crimes going on, a criminal act still going on. A bunch of people who believe that they are a chosen people, chosen by God, and they have to live in this area, killing other people. So we need a strategy. We need we need an armies to stand against them, to stop them, to disarm them. We need our prime ministers to go to the United Nations Council and say that this army should be disarmed. The Israeli army should be disarmed.
And that is what we have seen in the recent, the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly. We saw those walkouts with that kind of overconfidence with which the Israeli Prime Minister made a speech over there. We saw the walkouts on the part of the Muslim countries there. So what else? Today we are seeing that United Nations Security Council is also meeting. We have seen very strong statements coming from the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, also saying that this cycle of escalation, the sickening cycle of escalation must stop, because at the end of the day, it is the large number of people, the civilians, the ordinary citizens, which are bearing the brunt of this particular conflict. What could be practically done when it comes to stopping Israel's brutality and aggression in the region, when we specifically talk about the UNSC?
See, implementation of this statement should be done. It's not only a statement in the United Nations. Sitting there in New York, say something and nothing happens on the ground. This army have to be stopped. As we see, I think maybe Netanyahu have some issue mentally, maybe have some mental disorder, doing all this killing at the same time, come to the United Nations and give a statement. And he said in his statement that he will do more and he will kill his enemy. So who is his enemy? So the children, the women in Gaza, they're his enemy. The children, the women, the civilian in Lebanon, his enemy. So we see a person out of his mind. There must be a force to stop this person, stop his army from what they're doing.
So who is going to organize? Because when we talk about the leading world body, the biggest international organization, its chief, the United Nations Secretary General, asking to stop this cycle of escalation, he's been banned by the Israeli authorities to enter into Israel, has been declared as persona non grata.
Who should stop them? Who should stop? That's the reason. See, again, I'm saying we are not dealing with people who accept the rules, who accept the international law, who have actually who even accept the humanitarian laws. See, they are killing, as I'm saying, they're killing civilians. They are not targeting even the militants in Gaza. They are unable to find the militants. They are unable to fight militants in Hezbollah. Again, they go and attack the civilians. So we are actually dealing with an army with no rules, no morals. So what should be done? Other army have to come and stop. That's the only solution. Keep saying statements, keep doing meetings. I think even the meetings, which a lot of money spent on that. If this money goes for those people, even for the militants, it will be much better. Unless if we don't arm those people, what will happen? The more killing will happen.
Right. Ambassador Khan, now Iranian Foreign Minister says this particular act, Iran exercised its right of self-defense under the Article 51 of the United Nations Charter. The United Nations Security Council emergency meeting is underway. What do you expect at this particular point in time? Could there be any concrete outcome of this particular meeting that we could see that could help in de-escalating the situation only to a bit even, for instance?
Well, as you know, the P5 have a power of veto in the Security Council. So in my opinion, if you want to de-escalate this and if you want some strong resolution to come out of the Security Council, it is certainly the United States that holds the key, along with France and Britain, of course. And I believe that as far as the United Nations is concerned, if the Security Council fails to prevent a conflict like this, which can be very, very dangerous, because there is indication from the Russians also that if Israel were to attack Iran, it is possible that the Russians may also get involved. So this is a very, very dangerous situation, and I am hopeful that better sense prevails at the right time. But as I said, certain important countries hold the key, and they must act now to make sure that this doesn't go any further.
Well, when we talk about those condemnations earlier made by the United Nations Secretary General with that reign of terror, that aggression was unleashed by the Israeli regime and its defense forces in the Gaza Strip against the innocent people in Gaza, we saw the Israeli authorities rather counter-condemned those statements by the United Nations Secretary General. Now they have declared him as a persona non grata, banned him from entering into Israel. What does that basically depict? Where do we see that moral authority of the United Nations and its chief as the world's largest body?
There are countless resolutions in both the General Assembly as well as even the Security Council that have been totally ignored by Israel. The decision against them in the International Court of Justice was totally ignored by them. So in a lot of ways they treat these organizations with contempt. You see, you have been attacked and you say, I have a right to defend myself. Okay, I can accept that. But your response has been overwhelmingly brutal. And the fact that you say that every war has collateral damage, I can even accept that every war has collateral damage. But if you see a child who has been shot in the head, I'm sure that's not collateral. There was one case in which a car with the women and children were found with 335 bullet holes in them. And when the health workers went to assist them, they were also killed along with that. So that is not collateral damage. You know, when you turn everything into rubble.
That's a systematic targeting of civilians and the aid workers.
What about the fact that the defense minister says clearly that we are going to starve these people, we will prevent them from getting energy, food, water, and then finally it did happen. That is not collateral damage. You are starving people. And then the number of health workers, international aid workers, the number of journalists that have been killed is unprecedented in recent times.
Point well taken. I have to go on a very quick short break, the news break, and we'll resume the discussion after this. For that, stay tuned. Welcome back to Viewers on News. In today's program, we are talking about the rising tensions in the Middle East, and an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council is underway in that particular regard. In the studio, we are joined by Mr. Nasir Ali Khan, former ambassador, and also Mr. Baker Younis, Arab journalist. Mr. Khan, before going on the break, in the very first take, you also talked of three major reasons. The third, I would specifically like to take your detailed view regarding that, the attacking nuclear facilities in Iran. Now, the ex-Prime Minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett, has said, let me quote him, "We must act now to destroy Iran's nuclear program, its central energy facilities, and to fatally cripple this terrorist regime." How likely is that, and what could be the possible repercussions when we talk about nukes and nuclear facilities?
Well, it's very likely, in my opinion. One of the reasons is this whole conflict has been building up to an excuse to go and attack their facilities. So I hope to God it doesn't happen, because I know the consequences will be very, very grave. But this is part of the agenda. And not only that, in the surrounding areas, all those who are reaching out or have been convinced to reach out to Israel, the important thing that one needs to mention is, in his speech to the United Nations Security General Assembly, Netanyahu also seemed to give the impression that we are surrounded by enemies and everybody wants to get us. They want to not allow Israel to exist. which is not true at all. Last year in November, the Arab states as well as Islamic states, they made a clear statement that we want two states in Palestine, two states live together securely. Right. And then in spring of this year, the Arab League also repeated exactly the same message. They want to allow Israel to exist, but they want it to be contained in the borders before 1967. Right. If you look at the map that he showed in the United Nations, you look at it carefully, the so-called map of Israel has no mention of Gaza, it has no mention of the West Bank, of East Jerusalem. It is simply everything is Israel. Right. So you know their intentions.
Right. Mr. Younis, what's your understanding? Very quick closing comments regarding as to the possibility of attacking the nuclear facilities of Iran on the part of Israelis.
You see, we see nothing stopping Israelis from what they are doing. I think they might do it. You know, with this kind of leadership in Israel, they might go crazy, they can't do anything. I think we should stand up quickly. Muslim nations, Muslim countries, Arab countries should stand up quickly to stop them, not only to retaliate in some places, but to stop Israel totally from what they're doing.
Mr. Baker Younis, Arab journalist, thank you very much for joining us in the studio. For tonight's show, Mr. Nasir Ali Khan, former ambassador, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. A short while ago, Pakistan has also called for de-escalation in the Middle East, and Pakistan has always stated that the Israeli aggression must be stopped. We saw that very important address by the Pakistan's Prime Minister, Mr. Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif, at the United Nations General Assembly, also reiterating Pakistan's stated policy as to calling the international community to help end Israeli aggression in the region. With that note, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.